Hi, well, it's another Father's Day with so much we miss about our dads who died and all they contributed to our lives. Well, I can go on and on about the respect, the love, his guidance, commitment to our family honor, and it was my dad's lessons that formed who I've become. And there were particular examples and teachings that he'd slip into moral context that molded in me my regard for those who others emphasized as having differences rather than similarities. The whole thing about races and ethnicities. So while I see colors and features of those I cross paths with, I never ever didn't think distinguished those as being real differences. It all started when I was a small child. And my father was a proud policeman who was living his dream from coming over on a boat as a kid from Italy, working a beat in New York City. Now, for a cop, a beat used to be the area that they'd patrol, walking along the streets, getting to know the people they were hired to serve and protect. My father patrolled places he was familiar with that he grew up in, the Lower East Side, including Chinatown and Little Italy, and then up north to Harlem and Spanish Harlem. And what experiences he had! Every day I would wait in anticipation for him to come home and tell me the stories of the people he crossed paths with. The kids who were so much like me, and how they lived their lives and their adventures. He would tell me they wanted me to know what they were doing and ask me what I was doing. You know, there was Tyrone who said, he had always said something kind of ball in his hand, he said, and he would always that would get him in trouble by running in the traffic, chasing the ball down. And the games he would play, stoop ball, throwing the ball against a stoop, and then how good he was at catching it. And stickball, and how he always had a scraped knee falling on the street, and how loud he would laugh with his friends. Then Jose, with a name like mine, who, like Tyrone, was always having fun playing in the street, dodging cars, and Jose was able to sing and talk in 2 languages, and would send me a message with a word that was different from anything I ever heard. Of course, I got to pick a word to send back. And then there was the pretty Ming toy, who he said was always wearing a colorful dress and shiny black shoes as she played hopscotch with her friends on the sidewalk outside her parents' laundry store. She'd always ask what I liked to eat, and we'd compare notes. And she always wanted to know if I was nice and good to my mother. She was always very respectful to her parents, and they didn't have to worry about her and her friends running in the street. She became what I would now consider my first long-distance romantic relationship. I never forgot those images of her. So, with the other kids he would get to know, we all kind of grew up the same way. All good kids who I very well could have crossed paths with my whole life, with all those stories in the background. And while there are plenty of differences on the path of our lives, I always thought, given the opportunity, we'd continue to desire to be friends with each other and share all our adventures and wishes for each other's success. So, whenever I would cross paths with a Tyrone or Jose, I would always ask where they were from, which of course was a common occurrence even in my army platoon, where I just assumed we'd all get along since most of us were from New York. But unfortunately, probably some bitterness of their individual lives transcended what my dad had portrayed. But it never dimmed who I thought they were in my eyes. All of us had experiences that changed us in our attitudes and outlooks, but didn't change those similarities that God created, even though there are some outsiders who will continually emphasize differences to draw us apart. Oh, and on my first return to New York, working on Wall Street and the subsequent return of my play on a Broadway stage, my goal was to somehow locate Ming Toy, the first girl in my life. Chinatown and Little Italy were my eating hangouts. I actually approached people with my Ming Toy story, with a couple of older residents taking me seriously, with one who had a friend of a friend who thought her name could have been Ming Toy, T-O-I. It may be crazy to some, but I just wanted to search back to simple, kind of a purity of spirit, of love and respect that seems to have disappeared, more like Ming Toy. But then it may have been just a lesson in the beauty of innocence, but what a wonderful time it was. With all the different stories my father told me about their lives, I know Tyrone and Jose had to exist. I just hope they feel the same way I do. And the same for you too, Ming Toy, as I hope your children reflect the beauty and respect you gave, and that somewhere you have an old oriental chess with that pretty dress and black shoes to remind you of the talks we had. So thank you again, Dad, for lessons helping me cope with this life without you and Mom. God bless you and continue to reward you for your work here on earth with us. Amen.